to another episode of Navigating Grief with the Sisterhood. Welcome back, ladies. So good to chat with you guys again this month.
Yes,
Hey,
good to see
hey.
everybody.
All
Hello.
right. So, this episode, we're glad you're here. We invite you to just grab a cup of coffee or tea as we get into today's topic. We also invite you to like and share this podcast. Well, today we're going to be talking about forgiveness in the context of grief, forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, and even forgiving God, and then the healing power forgiveness can bring. So, thank you for joining again. Losing something or someone in this grief journey oftentimes elicits feelings, different, various feelings. And as we say here in the pot on the navigating grief with the sisterhood, you got to feel the feels. We got to feel the feels. But it's the grief process can send us into the mental, it impacts us emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And so we hold a range of emotions during this time. And so, but today we just want to drill into forgiveness. So I want to kick it off with a question, open it up with a question, ladies. Maybe someone can share or different ones can share a story. Have you ever held on to something so heavy in grief that you didn't realize it was weighing you down?
hmm
Anybody want to share?
I don't mind starting.
Okay.
I was thinking about this for a little, and I thought about after my mom passed. Um, I know I probably had shared with you guys before when they came to pick her up to take her to the hospital. They didn't take her to the hospital that I wanted. They took her to this medical center because I think the hospital was full. And there are things that happen there at that center, which I wasn't very happy with. And so, now every time I ride down the road where the center is, I know sometimes I tense up. I don't want to look that way. And so that's something that I think I'm holding on to. And it's, when we talk about forgiveness, sometimes I look back and say, I wish I had done something different. So it's almost like forgiving myself for even allowing them to take her there or just the circumstances that were around it. So that's something that I still hold on to, but it's getting better. But
Okay.
I sometimes don't even want to go in that direction because it just brings back so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely get that too. And just how that, like you said, it can linger for a little while, even, beyond sometimes when we have that forgiveness, and being able to recognize it, I think is important too, that we're holding on to something and how it makes us feel. And I think in this healing journey, the grief healing journey, we have to analyze and look at those things so that we can continue to move forward. And
hmm
so yeah, thank you for sharing, Jennifer. Anybody else?
think
Something
for
waiting?
me,
Okay.
I think for me, I realized that I was holding on to forgiving people for not doing what I think they should have done. That was really, really big. And I didn't realize it was weighing me down because for me, it was just like, okay, they made their decisions, I made my decisions, and we just kept going. But as time progressed and we talked about among family members, different events and things that happened, I realized that some people were not present. And I was like, why weren't they present? They decided to do something different. And I started holding that against them. But for me, I was able to forgive when I acknowledged that I was doing it, right? I was like, okay, I'm really feeling some kind of way about a family member.
Hmm.
So let me have this conversation with them and also realize that that was my issue. It wasn't theirs. They did what they felt comfortable with, and I had to be okay with what I felt comfortable with. But it was a process, and I didn't realize it until like we were all gathered in one space, and I was like, I'm not really liking something that they said, and they so it's really true when you say sometimes things weigh you down and you don't realize it right until you're in the midst of it. You think that everything is okay, but something comes up and shows you that, yeah, you're holding on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely love that too about just acknowledging it,
Mhm.
just acknowledging sometimes helps introduce the healing. It helps
Mhm.
us to get past some things and, just to uncover that, just facing it.
Mhm.
So, and definitely in this healing journey and the process of forgiveness, which we're gonna really get into tonight, um, we have to confront it. We have to acknowledge it. What hurt us, what's bothering us.
Can I say one more thing, Constance?
Yes, yes.
It's interesting when you said what's hurting us, what's bothering us. The other thing, how we say feel the feels, also don't judge your feelings. Like that was hard too. Like I kept telling myself what I shouldn't feel, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're going through trying to acknowledge something that's going on, you have to recognize that it's okay to feel it, whatever it is. Once you acknowledge it, you can move forward from it. But the whole
Right.
time you judge it, a lot of times we can't reach that healing process.
Yeah.
Right.
So good. So good. Glad you added that because it brought up, reminded me of an incident that I encountered, after my husband passed away. And I remember returning back to work and I was talking to a colleague, back to work and just getting back into the normal uh, routine of work. And I had to reach out to a colleague about something, and the subject of my husband passing came up, and she was just very flippant and nonchalant, about, oh, you'll get over it. And it's something that weighed on me, and just every time I, encountered her again after that point, it just like, it really offended me just how she was just nonchalant about it. And I think I had to just be able to acknowledge, just like you said, that bothered me, and not just push it under the rug type of thing. And
Right.
so yeah, and just be able to get past it and just recognizing too, sometimes we have to recognize that people are where they are, and I can't control what people say, what people do, but I can control how I respond and how I react. That's my choice. And
Yeah.
in forgiveness, that's a huge part of it, is making that choice, which segues into our next part of the forgiveness piece we want to talk about tonight is defining forgiveness, ladies.
Mhm.
Defining forgiveness. So, what does it mean to you all? What does it mean? Forgiveness mean to you all, in your words, or what have you?
Okay, I'll start with that. I
Okay.
would say letting go of negative feelings that you have towards that person that you feel wronged you. And whether it's intentional or unintentional, um, you have to let go of those negative feelings. That's my little bit of a definition.
All right. All right. Anyone else?
Yeah. I came to understand that forgiveness is really freeing myself. It's really freeing ourselves. And so I started looking at it like I know this might sound crazy, but it's like this bubble, and when you're not forgiving someone for something that has happened, maybe like you said, someone said something that it appeared kind of negative to you. Um, it's like you're still in this bubble, and you're not feeling good, you're frustrated, you're angry, all of these things. And so if you decide that you're going to step out of that and you're not going to allow that negativity to come in, it's freeing. So when you make that decision, like you said, it's a decision. When you make the decision that I'm not going to allow that negativity in me, and it doesn't matter if the person, um, you know, asks you to forgive them, or, it doesn't really matter about the other person. When you decide that you want to be free of it, it's almost like you're going to just step out of that negative bubble. And that's kind of like how I look at it. I know it sounds kind of funny, but that's that's
Yeah.
um, that's what makes me feel like, okay. And even if sometimes something comes up again and you see it again and you're like, oh, that you might be thinking that you're still holding on to that forgiveness, or not forgiving. then remind yourself, I just want to be free of this. I don't want that negativity in my environment, and you just step outside of it.
I
I
love that.
like that, Jennifer. I like that. And you create a visual for me. Like I literally saw myself
Yeah.
sitting in a bubble and seeing something that upset me and saying, I'm stepping out of this. And watch, and then I got something that even to add to it. Watching the bubble float away. Just
Oh,
kind of
yes.
just go away, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
my definition of forgiveness is letting go of the expectation of a different outcome and
Mm.
like just choosing to move forward. Like I'm gonna decide that although Constance wronged me, whatever I have to say in my mind to make it make sense for me. Because remember, forgiveness is for me, right? And
Yeah.
so my thing may be Constance was doing the best she could. Constance just really doesn't care for me like I thought she was, whatever it is. Being okay with it, whatever that outcome is, and saying I can keep going regardless, right? So
Right.
I think I love how you said, Jennifer, about freeing. It is just letting go. That's the big word, I think, for me with forgiveness, just letting go.
Mm. Yeah.
Love it, ladies. Letting
Mhm.
go. The bubble. I like that
I love
illustration.
that bubble.
And then floating away.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget the
I like
floating
that.
away. Just
Yeah.
yeah. And it's a choice, like it's been stated, it's a choice. And sometimes it's something we have to keep letting go
Right.
Mhm.
until it's gone. Because sometimes that when it flies away, you can still see it heading off into the distance.
Mhm.
It ain't completely out of sight yet.
Mhm.
Right, right.
And so that choice is sometimes a daily thing. It can be a moment by moment because those thoughts, they're going to come,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but
Or
we
you
have,
might see that
Um,
individual.
yeah, those
right.
thoughts come, they're like on repeat. You just like,
Mhm.
there are all these negative thoughts that just keep going and in and out of your head, in and out of your head, and you want them to stay out of your head, but then they keep coming back. So,
And
Yeah.
it's so interesting. You all are talking about negative thoughts, and I promise I'm gonna be quiet tonight. But this is just such a good topic for me because you also have to realize too. A lot of times we don't forgive because of the stories we continue to tell ourselves. Right? We have
Talk about
power
that.
over what we tell ourselves. We can change the narrative, and it's not living in denial. It's living free. It's basically saying I'm not going to be caught up in the negativity behind this situation because the situation is what it is. So what can I do in my power and my control to change where I go moving forward? So it's all about what we tell ourselves. It's all about um recognizing that you can't change the past no matter what.
Right.
I was talking to someone today about forgiveness, and the response that I was given was, Sakia, it's easier said than done. And I said, I totally agree. But just like you said, it's easier said than done. You can say to yourself, I'll make the choice every single day to forgive until it becomes natural, till it becomes just a part of who you are. So for those who are watching, I promise I'm going on mute. Just remember, there is power. There is power. You have it. You have the power over making the decision to control what your next steps are. You can't control the other person, but you can decide to forgive and then move on from there.
Yeah, so good. So good. We
mhm.
have the power.
We have the
We
power.
have the power. That's the bottom line. Even with the thoughts, we
Yeah.
have the power to shut them down.
Mhm.
It takes practice. We have to practice this, especially if it's not something that's normal or, something we're used to doing. One thing I do love about the grief journey, it opens up so many opportunities to heal, to grow, even though the loss is, devastating. It can be devastating. It can be just, it can life changing, but it gives us an opportunity, gives us so many opportunities
Right.
to heal and to grow.
Mhm.
And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that. But the next thing, let's get into more talking about forgiving self. Let's press into that a little bit more, ladies. I know Jennifer talked about that earlier with the incident with, wishing she maybe had done something a little different. But let's talk about that self-blame that often comes in grief, um, and how we can be so much harder on ourselves.
Mm.
Yes.
I want to share,
Okay.
Cass or
I-
Cassandra.
I'll share. And this has to do with when my mother passed away. I remember that day I brought her home from the hospital. She had been with us for 6 weeks, stayed with me and my husband. And that last week she ended up in the hospital. And so the day she was discharged, I brought her home and I said, Ma, you want to go with me to the store? I got to get your medicine and so forth, blah, blah. And she said, no, I'll stay here. So I, put her in her favorite chair and fixed her a cup of tea, gave her the Bible, had her all set up, and I left and went to get her medications and her dinner that she had requested. And I came home and she was sitting in another chair, looked very comfortable. I said, well, gosh, she must be really tired. She's sound asleep because her hearing's pretty keen. And then I said, well, I'm just going to make her dinner. And so anyway, I made dinner. I went over to wake her up, and she didn't respond. And then at that point, I knew she was gone. And for the longest time, I just was filled with so much regret and guilt. Why didn't I stay with her? I should have just said she should come to the store with me. That just played over and over. And I think I shared with that earlier about why couldn't I save her? I couldn't save her, and it wasn't until my doctor said to me, "Oh, I didn't realize you were God."
Yeah.
And that's what stopped me in my tracks. And I said, wow, you're
Mhm.
right. You're right. I couldn't have saved her,
Right.
but it took my doctor to put that sense into my head to stop those feelings of guilt that were playing over and over and over in my mind. So it's the guilt can really just be really uh, heavy. It weighs you down, and when you get that release, it's a lightning. It sort of lifts you up somewhat, and it helps you to start to move forward. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so good, Cassandra. We need one another. That's what kind of spoke to me when you were talking, just how your doctor was able just to speak those words and
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
shifted your perspective.
Hmm.
And I think in that forgiving ourselves, sometimes we need those other voices to just speak life,
We
Yeah.
do.
to us and let us, put that picture up and say, hey, no, you have no control over death. You
Mhm.
you can't control death. We can't
Right.
control death.
You can.
Um, and so just having that. What else, ladies? Anybody else?
Mhm.
I know for me, sometimes when in grieving in general, I blame myself for kind of the things I didn't do, whatever they may have been. Now think about there are a lot of things I did do, but our minds easily concentrate on the negativity, right? And
Hmm.
Right.
so one way that helped me to forgive myself in situations like that is to concentrate on what I know to be true. Kind of what Cass said. Like, I know that I'm not God. I don't have that power. I know that although I would have wanted to be somewhere 24/7, I have to sleep, I have to eat, I have to do things to take care of myself. Although I may have wanted to be in the doctor's office with my grandma so I can hear the information, right? Because, of course, we didn't get exactly what the doctor said. We got the version she wanted us to know. Like, the doctor may have said no bluebell cups, and he said one, so we don't know.
Right.
And so, but what I had to tell myself is people also have autonomy, and they have in depth exactly. They have rights. They have decisions that they can make. And I step back and say, Grandma lived a long life, but she kind of did it the in her way, right? Like I would have decided that I wanted you to stay 100 and some years, but you were okay with your 95 and your bluebell.
Yeah.
So that could have had her another 2 to 3, 4 days, 2 weeks, who knows? But she did what she wanted to do. So that's the other piece. I forgave myself by focusing on things that I knew were true about the situation.
Yeah.
Good. Are you gonna say something, Jennifer?
No, I mean, just, the same, really not adding too much more, that it was out of my control. I couldn't tell
Mhm.
the ambulance to, it was either a decision that I was going to drive her where I wanted to go or allow them to take her. And it was just at a situation where, even my dad, I was really asking him to make the decision. And I think, we agreed that it would be better for the ambulance to take her. But again, they didn't take her where we wanted, so. But again, you just never know how the plan is supposed to be laid out, and we have to just accept it. So, I've come to accept that I did the best that I could, in that situation, and that's just how it was supposed to be. I'm grateful that I was with my mom, how many times people might not even have been with the parent, So, I'm grateful.
I love that. Find the gratitude.
Mhm.
Find the gratitude, as we're going through the healing journey and as you're processing grief, find the gratitude, if in the forgiveness, giving ourselves the grace and finding that gratitude is huge.
Yes.
How about you, Irosha? Is there anything you can think about under the forgiving of self, how we process that?
Wow, there's so much to unpack, and I'm just listening. And as you all know, I always have my notebook and taking notes, and I'm just sitting here absorbing everything and how everyone gave their definition of forgiveness. And like for me, it's like constantly just working through the situation where that person hurt me, and for me in my grief, it's working through it with my family. I battle with that up until the day, constantly continuing to work through those negative emotions and not blaming myself for certain things that happened as my mom was transitioning, through the journey of dying. And like Jennifer said, when those negative thoughts do come up now, I look for gratitude into it, and I say, you know what? God did grant me to be there with my mom at that last final hour, because how the situation was, I may have never been able to see her again, but God did give me opportunity to see my mom. So I try to look at the gratitude in it when those negative emotions come up. So this is one of my favorite topics tonight.
Yes.
That's good.
That's good.
Find that gratitude, I tell you. Yeah. Now let's talk a little more. Let's talk about the next part is forgiving God. I know that's a huge one for some people and some of us, maybe even that we look at the role of God in our lives and in grief, why didn't you save them? Why didn't you do such and such, God? You could have, and those are some of the questions I asked. I was angry. I was angry with God initially. Some things I struggled through with that, and just because I was like, it was only me and him. Why you had to take? He was my family. Why would you take him? Why would you? You know. And so I wrestled with that. But yeah, but I had to get to that place of just releasing it. Releasing it. Because sometimes God doesn't always give us the answers as to all these whys that we ask. We can ask the whys, but He doesn't always give us those answers. And so I had to make peace, with the outcome, with the results. Um, yeah, I had to make peace with Him, peace with God, and know that He yet loves me, He yet cares. Um, but just some things we can't change, or we won't have the answers to on this side of life. you know so anybody else want to share about that piece of forgiving God?
Yeah, several of my clients have lost their sons, and my niece lost her daughter. And, these were all young people, either it was a traffic accident or one person, it was a violent murder of her son. And, just about in all these cases, they are always saying that they're angry with God because why did he have to take my son? He was good, why not take the bully, or just, and people who were in the church and who believe, who have a Christian faith, just initially they were just very angry. And I can't say I understood, or, I even can't say even for you, Constance, that I understood how you felt, because we don't understand how other people, how that loss has affected them. So, but in my own case, I don't, I think I may have shared before too, and this wasn't really losing a loved one, but it was when I had to sell my house. I was so angry, that, and this was a material thing, but it was a family home, and my parents lived there. And just having to get to a point where, I mean, it was too big for me to just keep. And so it was time for me to let it go. But in that, I didn't even realize too that I was grieving, that I was, having to give up this home. So, not so much angry, but just angry, and not to say that it was really directed to God, because what did God have to do with it? But yeah, so I just wanted to share that there have been many people that I've talked to that have lost loved ones, especially children, and that first period was really a sense of anger towards God.
Mhm. And I like how you went with it, Jennifer, talking about the selling of the house. I know, like when I lost a job, like when you have any kind of loss, sometimes we grieve things, because my job was also my extended family. I had been there. They helped me watch my child grow up, all types of things. And for a minute, and it seemed like I had arrived on that job, right? I had kind of done where all the work that I'd done had been worth it. And I remember being a little bit angry with God. Now, how I grew up is like, you can't be angry. So I had to fight through that. But I was a little bit like, why you let me get this far? Why did all this happen? And for me, as it related to forgiveness, it goes back to what I said earlier. I always focus on those things that I know are true. And I just go back to, for me, the word of God is true. And then I say, well, Lord, you're omnipotent, you're omnipresent, you're omniscient, you know all these things that I don't know. And so the self-talk, the affirmations, like I would tell myself, Lord, when I can't trace your hand, because this does not make sense, I will trust your plan and I'm going to lean into you, or I would just sit and say, cast your cares on God, for he cares, because nobody else can even halfway begin to understand what I'm going through, right? So I just feel like, to people watching, if you have to say, God, I'm angry, don't beat yourself up. I don't know how you were brought up, but in my church, you had to come to the front of the church and apologize for that thing. But I learned as I got older that God is big enough to handle it, right? And he can understand your feelings of despair, and he encourages you to reach out to him.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Hitting on that point, because so many people struggle with that. I too grew up like that, about you can't ask God why. But it's like, when I really think about it, when I've thought about it over the years, like, what kind of relationship, God really wants relationship with us, but what kind of relationship would it be if I can't ask questions?
Right. Yeah.
So, we can feel free to ask God the questions that are on our heart, but we have to trust that he knows what's best, and that if he doesn't answer us, sometimes he will. I remember when my husband passed, and I was having a day where I was sitting on the stairs, and I was just like crying, and just pouring out my heart to the Father, and I just heard him just say that, my husband's only here for a season, and he was on assignment for me, and in my life, and if in that moment, it brought me such peace to just know that he was just here for a season. Sometimes people are only here for a season in our lives, or just for, we had 15 years together. And I think it also goes back to that gratitude piece and finding that gratitude. But we had 15 years, and he greatly impacted my life, and my life will never be the same because I knew him. And so, sometimes, those answers are what we need in that moment, or those times. And God will sometimes give us those downloads or those answers. And other times he may not. but we have to trust them. And in my relationship, I choose to trust them with
Mhm.
my life. And so yeah.
Constance, I have to piggyback off. That was so beautiful what you said. My life is better because I have loved. And I think that's really important for us in the grief journey, regardless, no matter what stage you're in, the anger, the bargain, depression, all of it. When you
Mhm.
get to the point and you realize, when you hone in on the gratitude, my life is better because I had, that touched me. Yeah.
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 I can just speak for, piggyback off of that as well. When I lost my husband in 2018, I was angry. I was angry even before he passed because of his diagnosis of the Lewy body dementia. And so when he did pass, I was even angrier because I just couldn't understand, why. I mean, I asked that question over and over. Why? I mean, he was the good son. He and his family was the good son. He helped everybody else. He was good with the mentoring teenage at-risk youth. I can go on and on. He was just a wonderful man, a wonderful father, wonderful husband, and I just said, why did it have to be him? I just couldn't understand it. And so God, of course, saw that I was suffering. I talked to God all the time. But I remember it was 2019, the summer of 2019, and I saw this ad. They were looking for a nurse for Camp Harkness, which is a camp for special needs youth and, 16 to 20, well, actually, and up. And so I got the job. I really wasn't looking for a job, but it just popped up one day and I said, oh, this sounds interesting. So anyway, I got the job and I was there for 10 weeks working with the special needs population. And it was at Camp Harkness, which was one of these places. Harkness used to be our favorite place, my husband and I. And so Camp Harkness was right next door, and we always kind of like next door, but it was like another park next to that park. And we, on our walks at Harkness, we would always say, "What's going over? What does that place look like over there?" And so it's just funny that I ended up at this Camp Harkness. I was there for 10 weeks, and just every day it was like um, this almost like a surreal experience. Like I could feel my husband while the whole time I was there for those 10 weeks. So I call that the summer that I found peace. God knew exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And that was for me, basically my turning point where I was really able to start to really move forward.
That's beautiful.
It is. It
Thank you
is.
for sharing.
Mhm.
Summer I found peace. Wow.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we've talked about forgiving self, we've talked about forgiving God, and I forgot the first one we were supposed to talk about was forgiving others. And I guess we kind of talked about it a little bit throughout today, this evening, but forgiving others is huge. And letting people go, letting offenses go. Um, as I shared earlier about, something someone said, something someone did, and giving people grace. Um, because I think Sakia, you maybe shared earlier about just how sometimes people just doing the best they can with
Doing the
what
best
they
they
got,
can.
and so they may be ill-equipped, and we will latch on to something from someone that doesn't have the bandwidth sometimes to even to know or to whatever. But releasing others is definitely huge, and just making peace. And I think Jennifer, you maybe said earlier too about they don't have to be here even anymore.
Right.
We can forgive and we can release people that maybe have already gone on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something they said, but they're no longer here.
Yeah.
So I know we sometimes in society talk about this closure, or you need closure for this or closure for that. But sometimes we have to close it for ourselves.
That's
Mhm.
good. Close that door
Yeah.
ourselves. That's
Yeah.
right.
It's the decision. It's the decision that you make, that you're going to free
Mhm.
yourself
Yeah.
from whatever that hold is on you, you know.
And I think it's some kind of quote, you all may have heard it about, like, when we don't forgive, we feeding ourselves the poison. I can't
Yeah.
remember how it
Yeah.
goes.
Mm,
It's like
mhm.
feeding yourself the poison and expecting the other person to die or something. It's
Okay,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, the other piece too about when I ask myself this all the time when I get kind of irritated by, like you said, offenses, minor offenses. I just go, what's the point? Like, what's the benefit? What am I expecting? How am I expecting this to turn out? Right. And so if I'm expecting someone to apologize, if I'm expecting for someone to show me some type of remorse, I might be setting myself up for failure. So therefore, I have to just take care of it myself, right? And so I'm just gonna let you go, and I can decide as I move through the process of forgiveness whether or not I want reconciliation. Because that's the other thing.
Come on.
Forgiveness doesn't always mean that we're gonna go back to being how we used to be.
Mhm.
Right.
Even Constance, I can recognize they may not have the bandwidth, but it's not selfish either to say, okay, because they don't have the bandwidth, we can't move together where I'm going. That's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've learned to love people from a distance, because sometimes
Yeah.
it's family, you know, and if people are toxic, if they lack the skills to have relationship or know how to talk to people correctly, then they may find themselves by themselves a lot. I don't know, but we have to make those choices for us.
For ourselves.
Mhm.
That's right. That's
Yes.
right. Arosha's smiling. I want to know what you're
Yeah,
thinking.
right. Oh, now, Roche.
Been taking everything when you said don't expect and you got to do the work for yourself and love people from a distance. That's my favorite word. I tell people all the time because it's just toxic out here and you got to protect yourself. So I can just love you from a distance. I want to keep my peace. I want to continue to heal. So you can forgive and you don't have to be buddy again.
Mhm.
It's
Right,
just,
right. Set boundaries.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes.
boundaries. The
Yeah.
best word I ever learned as an adult, growing as I continue to navigate this adult life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Anybody else? And I think for me, I've another thing I've learned too is about, going back to that giving people grace, because sometimes I haven't gotten it right. Truth be told,
Right.
That's right.
I haven't always been
Mhm.
been the best. And so I can have grace, I can have, forgiveness, and but again, that doesn't mean I'm supposed to reconcile with you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It doesn't
Mhm.
mean forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation.
Mhm.
And but it does mean I'm choosing, as we've said, forgiveness is a choice.
Mhm.
Um, I'm choosing to let it go. I'm choosing to forgive this and let it go. And yeah.
And I don't know if we said it already, but it's a process. It may not be
Mhm.
overnight, but making a choice that this is what I'm going to move towards, then you then begin that process of, letting it go. But it may not happen right away because
Hmm.
there's so much the grief is just heavy, like we always say.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love how you just clarify that. It's a process. It's
Mhm.
definitely a
Yeah.
process.
Mhm.
A journey. Healing in itself is a journey. We
Yeah.
don't just wake up healed.
Right. And it's moment by moment decisions, right?
Yes.
Just deciding I'm going to do this. I meant to say when Cass was talking about her experience, I think if I have my dates wrong, help me. I think you said 2018 someone passed away, but you didn't go to the camp until 2019. So
Mhm.
you already, I mean, if I can just deduce from what she said, for a year we held on to some stuff,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And it
Yes.
wasn't until she was able to go there and find peace at the camp. But once again, I'm sure that was the process of trying to get through, trying to move forward. But
Mhm.
one day it happened, right? But
Yeah.
that's because you went through the process.
Mhm.
And it was divine too, I see, because you said
Yeah.
you weren't even looking for a job.
Right.
It popped up And evidently you were open to it. This was God working his way to get you to that place where you found peace.
Yes,
You didn't even know that, because it's a journey and you were open.
right. And I didn't know it at the time, and it wasn't until after, and I thought about all of how it all just
Came about.
how he orchestrated behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and I just said, okay, I guess this was why I needed to be where
Mhm.
I was, and it was just a beautiful. It
Mhm.
was like the best. I just can't. I still can't even believe it because it was just so, like you
Wonderful.
said, divine is the
Mhm.
word that does come to mind, and just the whole, just the whole. It never would have happened, I guess, if it didn't need to happen, but it did happen because God felt that is exactly what I needed.
Mhm.
It's the
Mhm.
timing. It's about timing, being in the right place at the
Yeah.
right time.
Yes.
Yeah,
So for
timing.
those who are watching, I have to say, yes, you can express once again your anger at God. But on the flip side, how can you stay mad at the one who was
Right.
able to deliver us from it all? Many are the
Yeah.
afflictions of the righteous, but God delivers us from
Yes.
them all.
Yes.
And as Cass was talking, you're right, Jen. It's divine intervention. And so it's okay, once again, for you to say, I'm mad right now. And I don't really know what the future is going to hold, but I want to trust you in it. And I'm going to still be mad for a minute, but
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
keep
Yes.
loving me and holding me and
Yeah.
keeping me because I trust you.
Mhm.
And this is an example for those who are watching. It's not just us giving you and feeding you good things. This is real life experiences of people who have gone through a little bit of anger, but they came out with a lot of hope.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
beautiful. Love that. Came out with hope.
Yes.
That's what this journey
Mhm.
it brings.
Mhm.
We keep showing up. You're gonna get to the
Mhm.
hope.
You're going
Hope
to get to
prevails.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hope prevails, as
Hope
we say.
prevail.
We
Yes.
get to it.
Yes.
We get to the joy. We get to
Yes.
the joy.
Mhm.
And some of people in our audience here may still be in those early times, where they're feeling so much grief and they can't see this far. But as you mentioned, Cass, he orchestrated this
Yes.
for you. So we just have to hang in and we just
Yeah.
have to trust that our
Mhm.
life is going to get better in time because it's a process.
Process.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I love, the how he incubates us. It's like I felt like some,
Mhm.
parts of my journey, he was like, I was in this incubation, you
Mm.
know, period. And just
Mhm.
yeah, it's light at the end of the tunnel. It really is.
Mhm.
We get to laugh again. We get to
Mhm.
learn from all the things.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
better because we can be. And it's a choice. Like we
We can be better. That's good.
can be.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes, it
can be.
can be. Yeah. And just remembering that forgiveness is that release. It's the freedom that you're gonna, you're freeing yourself from all of the negative and things that's holding you down and holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Forgive. If we can't say anything else more, it's
Mhm.
forgive. Just choose.
Yeah.
Just forgive. Forgive it
Mm-hmm.
all. Forgive it all.
Yes.
But ladies, this has been an excellent. I just so love this topic too, and forgiveness, and we've shared a lot. We've shared a lot. Are there any final remarks or any tools we can leave our audience with as we've talked this evening, just to highlight some of those tools um, for processing forgiveness and anything else? And
I guess I'll go. I do want to kind of just go back to what Jenna said throughout the entire podcast episode tonight, which is it's a process. And so many of you may be watching and saying, how do I start the process? Like, how do I start forgiving someone who has really offended me? How do I start forgiving myself? How do I forgive God? For me, I'm a writer. I love to write. I journal. My husband even laughs now. He's like, I know when you're mad at me, that pen is just big. So but that's where I start gathering my thoughts, right? And so that's one way to start with the forgiveness journey. You get a piece of paper, a journal, you can write in it, you can tear it up afterwards. You know, it's the letter that you never send. You don't need to send it. It's just for you to get your thoughts together about what you're feeling and then determine where to go. So that's my tool. Journal. Write.
Yes.
Yeah. I like journaling as well. And another thing someone might do is, you know, if they have a trusted friend, someone that they can just talk to, and not to get answers per se, but just to kind of let it out, because sometimes you just need someone to talk to hear you, I should say. And so just kind of find a trusted friend that you can just, you know, just have them listen to you, you know, what you're feeling. Yeah. Or a coach.
Our coach.
Yeah. Yes, we have some coaches on the line.
Coach is here.
Anybody else?
I
Cassandra?
think prayer, for me, it was prayer and meditation. Those helped me connect, just kind of align with God's word and just try to hear his voice. His voice does come in different ways. You know, it could be just you reading a verse or a scripture or something that's inspirational. Watching feel good movies for me was another way um, to help me just release some of those negative feelings, because you start watching those feel good movies, and you know, they start off kind of like the people are in a bad way, but then it becomes a story of resilience, of recovery,
Yeah.
of renewal. So those were the kinds of movies that I watched frequently.
Yeah.
Right.
I got another suggestion. Putting yourself too in the other person's shoes can also help you. There's this song that I love, and I looked up the lyrics. And the first part of it says, "Confession is good for the soul," they say. Well, now it's my turn. I'm willing to share all I've learned someday, but some days I'm not willing to learn. I don't always like to be told what's right from wrong. I'm selfish sometimes when I don't want to be. How can you stand me? Oh Lord, why do you hold on? I think if you say those same words to yourself, then you can also reflect it upon somebody else, right? And so you know that you're not the best that you can be. So just reflection, putting the mirror in front of you, that can help start the process as well with forgiveness.
Love it. Love it, ladies.
Mhm.
So good. And then the symbolic acts of release. I know I've heard of people writing it down and throwing things away. You know, writing it out. And maybe goes back to the journaling piece, but writing things down and throwing it away. Throwing it, you know, just a symbolic act can sometimes be helpful. So, Rosha, you have any final words?
I think she's on mute.
Yeah. Okay.
I think she wants to come in.
Okay.
She's on mute.
But yeah, this has been so good, ladies.
Yes.
So good. And yeah.
Mhm. That was a wonderful topic. Yeah. Wonderful topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that we're talking about forgiveness, which can weigh on people. When you hold on to things, it can be so heavy. But I can tell you in this moment, I feel so light, right? And I feel like you guys do too. I can feel the love through it. So this is another example why we are saying and encouraging you to try your best to forgive. There is so much peace, joy, lightness. I mean, I don't even know the word. Relief, as Jen said. Freedom. That's the word.
Freedom.
Freedom. That's the word I was looking for. Freedom on the other side of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. So we hope you guys have gotten something out of this episode of navigating grief with the sisterhood. We thank you for tuning in. And until next time,
Yes.
grief is heavy, but what, ladies?
Hope
Hope
prevails.
Prevails.
Prevails. See you next time.
Bye,
Yes.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.